Welcome to the Thank You Life podcast. Today's guest is Allison Draper. Allison received financial assistance from Thank You Life in 2024 so that she could complete a ketamine-assisted psychotherapy process that she had begun, funded by her work. This is something that we're seeing more and more in the space where we're looking at this accessibility issue. So groups like Enthea have actually set up a health benefit program for employers. These companies can actually give their employees ketamine-assisted psychotherapy as part of their health benefits. In the zeitgeist, we're already familiar with our health insurance and health benefits coming through our employers, so this seemed like a natural progression, and we're so grateful that they're working on that. And that's where Allison was able to get started with this work. But as you'll hear, she did 6 sessions of ketamine-assisted psychotherapy, and this often happens where the process doesn't end there. Sometimes you get to the 6th session, and that's often how many people start with, 4 to 6 as a series. And as they complete that 6th one, maybe they're just starting to get into some trauma that's quite heavy and hard to process. So it's not a quick process, and Allison learned that. And she was at this point where she completed her 6th session, but she was nowhere near at a point of resolution. So she applied for financial assistance through Thank You Life because, as she voices, she had no way to afford this on her own, yet she was kind of stuck really raw in this process of having a lot of things opened up, and she just needed support to complete her process. So we were grateful to be able to help her get a few more sessions in with good integration so that she could really find some resolution around this work. And this is a great conversation. Allison and Kevin get into a range of different topics, a lot about how when a long-term relationship ends, there's this almost identity crisis and a really challenging thing to move through, as many of us have experienced. So a lot of insight shared in this podcast. We hope you enjoy it. And if you feel called to make a donation so that more people like Allison can access the potential healing through a ketamine-assisted psychotherapy process, please consider visiting our website, thankyoulife.org. The link will be down in the description below. Every donation counts, and we would so appreciate if you would share this podcast, like, subscribe, do all those things on whatever platform you're listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode with Allison Draper.
Thank You Life is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that was started by myself and Dr. Dan Engel in 2022 as a financial assistance fund for psychedelic therapy. Psychedelic therapy is expensive, and 95% of the U.S. population cannot afford its costs. That's where we come in. We partner with over 100 ketamine clinics throughout the U.S. to help clients who cannot afford this treatment. In 2024 alone, we gave over $250,000 away to help 115 people receive this life-changing treatment. This work is not cheap, and it is life-changing. If you feel inspired to give or to become a monthly donor to help more individuals access this treatment, please visit thankyoulife.org/donate or email our Director of Philanthropy, Meredith Thomas, at meredith@thankyoulife.org. Every bit counts, and small monthly donations are especially important to keep this work moving forward. If you can give even $10 to $25 a month, you will join our community of contributors who are changing the lives of so many. Thank you all for your support. This episode of the Thank You Life podcast is proudly supported by Enthea, a mental health company dedicated to providing access to safe and affordable psychedelic-assisted therapy. Like us at Thank You Life, Enthea is committed to removing health equity obstacles that impede access to impactful mental health care. Enthea is a third-party administrator specializing in innovative mental health benefits for employers, including access to ketamine-assisted psychotherapy. As the first and only provider of advanced mental health solutions for the workplace, they enable companies to expand their benefits to include breakthrough therapies that address root causes of mental health challenges. Visit enthea.com to learn more. And now, back to the show. All right. Hi, Allie.
Hi.
Welcome to the Thank You Life podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And yeah, thanks so much for being here.
Mm-hmm.
So we're here in Austin, Texas, and so you're the second of the Thank You Life clients that we've been able to interview, and we just so appreciate your willingness to be able to share your story, share your story of healing with us.
Yeah. Excited to be here. Excited to chat about it.
Will you share a little bit about, I guess, what you're up to in life at the moment?
Sure. So right now I'm kind of in a transitional period. I have a full-time job. I just moved back into what I would call kind of my little dream house. It's a little cabin in Central Austin, and yeah, I just kind of exited a long-term relationship after exiting another long-term relationship kind of back to back. So I've been in a partnership for over 10 years, so like a decade. And so right now I'm just about kind of to start that next chapter of my life of, you know, um, kind of a fresh start, fresh house, yeah, looking forward to diving into a lot of the stuff I just haven't done in a long time and relearning how to, I don't know, get in touch with myself and all that kind of stuff. So big stuff, big life changes right now.
What kind of things are those that you're trying to get back in touch with?
Definitely my health. Like I think I deprioritize my physical and mental health a lot. I tend to focus, I distract myself by trying to take care of other people, or in a relationship, I usually kind of forget I exist, and then it creates kind of that resentment circle that is not good for anyone. So I'm really going to focus on kind of developing habits that I know are good for me, both, for my physical health, diet, mental health, kind of doing like a regular therapy routine. So that's one. And then just travel. Like I have been really lucky to travel through my relationships, but I haven't solo traveled in a long time. And I think like I did that a lot in my college years. And like I just like always really enjoyed it. And I just never felt like I kind of had the opportunity to do that. And now I'm kind of thinking about that too. So there's more, but those are the two that come to my mind first. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and solo travel, I guess, can be a thing to do not in relationship, and I think it can be such a powerful like learning and growing experience.
Yeah, it's just like I did a lot of solo travel from 18 to 22, and like I was a much more closed off, shy, less explorative person. I mean, I was still explorative enough to kind of get out there and travel, but I wasn't I mean, 10 years you learn a lot, and like I'm ready to take all like my confidence and tools that I have now into doing that. Meeting people, being more open to meeting people and trying new experiences. Just like, yeah, exciting. It's like I'm reborn a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd love to get a bit into just the whole kind of arc that you've taken to get to this kind of rebirth place. Um, yeah, so I'm trying to think of the best place to start. So perhaps just an interesting thing to talk about is how you first got into ketamine therapy. And
Yeah.
you went to a clinic here in Austin, Illumma.
Right.
That is one of our partners.
Mm-hmm.
But you also went there initially, not through us, but through your work.
Yeah. It's really cool, and it's really rare, I think, for this to happen. I hope more and more companies and businesses open it up to their team. But yeah, I got the opportunity through my job. I work at Banger's Sausage House and Beer Garden on Rainy Street here in Austin. And Ben Siegel, he's the owner. He's really open to different kind of, methods of healing, I guess, like different
healing modalities.
like what's the word, like alternative practices, meditation, ketamine therapy, psychedelics. And so I'm his assistant, so I work really closely with him. And he before I started, he had offered ketamine therapy sessions to a few people on the leadership team or people that he worked closely with. And I kind of saw what it did for them, just from their own accounts. And I was really interested in it, and he offered it to me over a year ago. It took me a whole year for me to actually get on board with it. But I was kind of on board. It was more other people didn't think it was a good idea, which is, like I wish I would have been a little bit more assertive in like what I wanted to do, but I let other people kind of be like, oh, it's weird, I don't know about that, like, like, and I was like, oh, I don't know, like, but it's a cool opportunity, and I really do feel like it would be beneficial. But I kind of am glad that I did it when I did. Waited a whole year because I definitely don't know if I needed it at that time. I really felt like I needed it this summer, like when I started it. So I kind of had to make sure I was ready to do it. But yeah, it was offered to me, kind of not pushed at all, but gently reminded. Ben would remind me, like, this is something available to you, and we will foot the bill. And now that I've done it and been a recipient of it, I'm like extremely grateful because I can see what it does. But you do have to, in my opinion, kind of know why you're going. Like,
Totally.
Versus just like, cool, that sounds like it could be helpful in a generic way. But like once I had something I needed to process and needed some, once I had the intentions like clear, I think that was a great time for me to start.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
One thing I'm interested about is, you know, there can be a lot of stigma and just like lack of education for a lot of people about what is this? Is it a psychedelic?
Sure.
And what does that also mean? You know, what's going to happen if I do psychedelic therapy? And yeah, and it sounds like on one hand, some people in your circle didn't have a lot of information, but neither did you, which I imagine is part. So like, yeah, I'm curious, like for at that point, what was it about? What did it feel like? I'm not sure what this is. Was there some stigma attached to it? Like this might be a bad thing?
I think for me is like, I've been very tame in my exploration of like substances, like throughout my life. Like I'm really kind of green when it comes to drugs in general.
Sure.
So ketamine, like doing, you know, my brain is thinking like party drug, you know, like not, so I wasn't like scared of it because I understood the difference and the nuance, and Ben, you know, explained it, and it's totally not the same thing. Like this is, you know, but
What you're talking about is like doing it in a container with a therapist opposed to
at a party. Yeah, getting offered a line or something, like, you know, a completely different situation. And like, you know, I just didn't have the knowledge of like, the experience. I was so like, just had no idea what it was. And I was really interested in it, but from, you know, kind of people in my circles, like family members or like my partner at the time, I was more like skeptical, like, why do you feel like you need such a intense form of therapy? Almost like a defensiveness of like, and like, I think it was their own fears, which is fine. But that kind of, I didn't want to make anyone uncomfortable. Like my natural personality type is I'm like a recovering people pleaser, but like I feel like I'm an Enneagram type 2. I like want to make people comfortable. And so I'm a helper. Yeah. I'm a helper, but I'm also an Aries. So like, it's a very weird, like, because I'm very like intense and, you know, but at the same time, my natural personality is like, I'd like people to be happy and taken care of.
Happy with you, I imagine.
Happy with you, me. I mean, I'm learning to kind of push that boundary more, but like, I'm
sure that Aries energy will help you do that.
It's a weird dichotomy of being like, kind of like, the two. I was type 2 and type 4 was 1 point off. So it was weird, kind of the two different individualists and also the helper back to back. I mean, I feel like both sometimes, but anyways, I think I was like putting their kind of worries in front of my need for exploration, but at the same time, like it worked out when it was supposed to, you know. I'm kind of glad for that delay. But yeah, even after I started it, like my parents, who are wonderful and more on the progressive side, you know, they still were like, what are you doing? Like, what is this? You know, so I'm sending them stuff and they still just not sure, because it is, you know, that people hear the word and they're like, that's drugs. You're doing drugs. You know, it's like, no, it's not quite that. It's a little different, you know?
Yeah, I can get the same thing from my parents too. After, you know, they knew that I was going to do ayahuasca in my 20s, and still my mom will be like, why do you need this?
Like, what's going on in your head?
And I'm like, I think you need this too, or not need it, but could certainly benefit from it. But
for sure.
Yeah, just some.
I think my parents could benefit from ketamine therapy for sure. It's just it's the same thing. It's like you have to arrive there yourself. You can't force anyone to do it. But yeah, I'm trying to gently get them to read the things and, you know, listen to me. And I'm gonna see my dad in a couple weeks. I'm like excited to actually like talk to him about it, you know, because
Cool.
he's done alternative medicine. He had terminal cancer back in the 80s. Had a very
Wow.
very small chance of survival. He ended up refusing chemo and did a holistic natural diet.
Wow.
Did all this research. He was an anatomy and physiology major at the time. And so he started researching that amygdalin, which is a naturally occurring substance in bitter almonds, which are grown like in the Middle East. That substance is like similar to arsenic, but he was like, okay, if my lymph nodes are riddled with cancer, and if you inject arsenic or like some type of poison, it tries to kill your healthy lymph nodes, right? Your healthy cells. But if you have cancerous cells, his thinking was that it would attack those first. And he was right. Like he went into remission like 2 months after he started to that like homeopathic
Whoa.
therapy. Yeah. And so
Whoa.
he's very open to alternative medicines, but at the same
And has
time,
really kind of lived it himself.
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be here without that. He wouldn't be here without that thinking, you know? So it's funny because he's so anxious about this therapy. And yet,
Yeah, interesting.
yeah, but it's like, it's just a lack of understanding, you know? Whereas I'm sure his parents were like, what are you doing? You know, when he's,
Right,
you're
go get the
refusing
chemo.
chemo. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like he was like, I'm a goner. I have like a 3% chance to survive. I might as well go crazy and try something else. So
Yeah, and
Yeah.
there's nothing like death to almost give us a particular kind of freedom like that.
or creativity. Yeah.
Totally,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah, it reminds me of like, I think what a spiritual kind of idea can be, which is like the idea that life is a death sentence.
Mhm.
So we don't even necessarily need to wait for like a terminal cancer diagnosis to be like, well,
We're all terminal.
the shit's terminal
Yeah, we're
anyway.
terminal.
And we don't know when it's going to terminate. But yeah, you know, when it is potentially going to terminate in 40, 50 years, it's hard to like really kind of touch
Mhm.
that in any kind of real way.
Right. But when it's right in your face,
Totally.
it's like, oh, I guess I can get a little creative here and try to save my
Yeah.
life. Yeah.
Yeah. Like let's try some things because
I think that's like kind of what the mental health is like. Not that I've never felt suicidal. I've never felt like I was at quite that level, but there is kind of an urgency that comes with when you start to reach capacity and you start to realize like all the stuff that you've smushed down processing wise, you start to know it's there, and then it's like it's bubbling up, and like that's kind of when I was like, oh, mental health is just as important as physical health, and I really need to take care of it ASAP, or I'm gonna like go down a really dangerous path. So I think it's similar but different. Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you what did that look like for you? And what was that dangerous path? Was that like a dark depression or?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've never been clinically depressed. I think I've flirted with depression and feelings, but like I felt it was the dissolution of my long-term relationship that I handled fairly poorly. Like I
The
think
like 8 or 9 year
it
one.
was 8.5. I mean, we had lived together at that point for 10 years. We started
Wow.
out as roommates, we became best friends, and then we kind of flourished into a monogamous romantic relationship.
Mhm.
But it was like throughout my entire 20s. And like I had a deep, deep love and connection with this person. And I started to realize that just we weren't compatible enough. And we weren't, I wasn't allowing her to flourish, and she wasn't allowing me to flourish. And it was horrifying because it was like, I never thought we would be apart, and I couldn't end it because I was too scared. It was codependent, right? Like I could not imagine my life without her. And when we had a conversation, I was like, if we break up, I would like to remain friends. I can't imagine you not in my life. And she said, that won't happen. I can't handle that. And I was like, that even pulled me further away from doing the hard thing because
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine over and over. I was like, I can't passion this. But then finally I just kind of reached ahead. You know, I felt like I had some universe signs. I don't know how woo-woo you are, but like I felt very like the universe was trying to tell me like you're hurting both of you, like her and you. So I finally kind of.
What do those signs look like?
I can get into it if you want.
Please, yeah.
It is a really interesting story.
I'll just say quickly,
yeah, sure.
All of the kind of major decisions in my life in adulthood, which has mostly been moving, have all come through guidance and me continuing to just say, hey, show me what I'm supposed to do here. So yeah, I'm very very into it. Yeah.
I think like I was always open to supernatural or you know, kind of that realm, like another alternative realm. But until last year, I was not 100% sure until this, what I'll share, happened. And now it's like, yeah, it's fascinating to feel so in touch with something beyond our reality. But what happened was I had this was May of 2023, is like I was definitely feeling like I needed to exit my first long-term relationship. And I had a dream, of probably the most vivid dream I've ever had. I was given a grant for the MoMA. Like I was given like $1 million or something to do a photography project, because I do film photography for fun, like as a hobby. And they were like, we want you to do a project for an exhibit. Here's money. You have a year. And that was my dream. Like my dream. And I was like, okay. So what I did was I moonlighted as like a maid in a different hotel each month. So I would like
still in the dream.
Yeah. This is all the dream.
Yeah.
And so I would go start like be a maid at a hostel all the way up to like the Ritz-Carlton. And my photography project in the dream was capturing still like life of people's hotel rooms, like when they're not in them, like what they bring and like what that's in their suitcase, like very
how messy they are.
yeah, very like something that would be, you know, morally questionable to do in real life, but like in the dream it was like, this is gonna be great. And
you weren't telling the people that you were like going in there.
I'm pretending to be a maid to get into the room.
Right.
So in the dream, I'm in this high-rise hotel somewhere in like Asia, or I don't know, but I look out as I'm setting up my camera, and I see this raven, like a crow, like a big black bird, I think a raven, and it's just dipping and diving and flying erratically, and I kind of go to the window and I put my hand on the window to watch him, and he just freezes in flight, like completely frozen in flight. And he like looks at me and he just caws like, and then he just flies towards the window and hits the window and dies onto the balcony. And the way he's postured is like very peaceful, like his wings aren't out. It's just like a little dove, you know, kind of like I don't know, explain it, just like almost like a cat when they're all loafed up, you know? And I woke up like immediately. And so that was like, whoa, that was an intense dream. And I was kind of writing about, I walked to a coffee shop that morning, I wrote about it. And on the way back, I was like kind of on my phone, and I like almost stepped on a dead grackle, like right in my path. And I was like, weird. I mean, you see dead birds sometimes, but I was like, well, that was a coincidence. What a coincidence. Yeah. So then I didn't think much of it, but about a week later, I had the same dream, like a recurrent, like the exact same dream, but it was like quicker. And then it was same routine, it was the same night. So it was like Friday to Saturday. And Saturday, walked to the same coffee shop. And on the way back, this time, I saw like a raven, like which you don't really see in Austin very often, like a giant blackbird dead in the same postured position that I saw in the dream, right on the sidewalk, like as I was walking by. Ooh. And it just kind of like, I stared at it for like a full minute because I couldn't believe that this was like, you know, I don't know, like the reality. I was like, and I just made sure it was real. I didn't even take a photo or anything. I just was like, okay, something's off. So I ended up
slap in the face.
Yeah. It's very strange. And then my ex-partner and I, like, we had a kind of a skirmish. She decided to take some time and like left town for a little while. So during that time, the next day actually, I just drove to see one of my best friends in Louisiana. I was telling her the story, just like I'm telling you, kind of what happened. And the minute I finished, a little blackbird flew into her she had the door open, flew in, down the hall, smacked into the window and died. And her little kid was like, what? And she like looked at me like, the bird. Again. It happened again in the Waco library. I was talking to someone and someone looked beyond me and said, look at that bird. And then it smacked the window. This is all within about a month. And then it happened at my house. We had a big back window. And again, sitting there, smacked and died. Like, they just kept dying. Like, I think that was bird 6. And then bird 7 was fighting with my ex-partner, walk into her office. The minute I kind of stepped into her space, a bird hit the window and she stopped. She just looked at me like as if I was kind of like, what are you doing? Like, witch, And so that was number 7 or 8. And then it happened again. And it was overwhelming. It was just these birds keep dying. And I've never in my life seen a bird hit a window like that. Like, it was like 9 in a month or something.
Yeah,
so,
I may have seen that once before.
Yeah, try 9 in a month. It was insane.
Yeah.
You're listening to the Thank You Life podcast because you're interested in hearing inspiring stories about people's personal growth, transformation, and healing with psychedelics. And that's awesome because those stories are really powerful and they deserve to be heard. But if you are anything like me, you are also interested in what's happening out in the world to make these substances, these medicines, more accessible and available to everyone. So my name is Henry Winslow, and I created a free email newsletter called Tricycle Day that helps you do just that. Every week, I send 2 issues that take about 5 minutes to read, so not a huge time commitment at all, but they'll get you caught up on what's happening in psychedelic research, policy reform, and this emerging industry that's unfolding in real time. So if that sounds like something you would like to check out, just go to tricycleday.com, and there you can enter your email and you'll be good to go. So with that said, I'm super happy to be supporting Thank You Life, and let's get back to the podcast.
This episode of the Thank You Life podcast is proudly supported by Dr. Bronner's, a brand that believes in more than just making great soap. As a dedicated corporate sponsor of Thank You Life, Dr. Bronner's is helping us break down barriers to mental health care, advancing our mission to providing life-changing access to psychedelic therapy for those in need. Together, we're making healing possible for underserved communities across the country. So next time you see that iconic bottle on the shelf, know that Dr. Bronner's isn't just providing that refreshing shower. They're also invested in improving access to mental health care for everyone. Thank you, Dr. Bronner's, for being a true partner in healing. Visit drbronner's.com to learn more. Now back to the show.
So then I'm not going to tell everything, but basically I ended the relationship and the bird stopped, completely stopped.
Can I just ask, was there something particular that had you link all of that to the relationship? Just kind of everything, the turmoil going on, was it fairly obvious, or was there something particular that you were like, oh, this is about the relationship?
It felt like about the relationship. I think it's because that was the big glaring thing in my life. It felt like a messenger. And when I was reading about ravens and reading about it, they're usually trying to warn you,
So it wasn't many steps to go from that to the big thing that if something's going to warn me about something in my life right now, it's about this relationship.
Yeah, that's what it felt like. Yeah.
Right,
and there was other stuff. I won't go into the extreme details, but
Totally.
It felt very obvious. And then as soon as I ended it, I didn't see another. Not only did a bird not hit a window in the last 14 months, but I never even saw a dead bird on the sidewalk. I never even anything. And while my last relationship, about a month ago, kind of ending kind of that phase of, I think we're, 2 birds hit the window within an hour, one in the front, one in the back.
Oh my
and so,
gosh.
And the first one I held, as he died, and my ex-partner just kind of stared, and she's like, oh, they're back. And so, because she knows everything.
Oof.
And then within literally 30 minutes, another one hit the front. And it was and she even said, it's done. It feels like an ending piece. The birds feel to me like a symbol of it's time to make a decision that's almost impossible, but you have to move on. So that was the messaging I felt from like that realm. But yeah, I'm extremely interested in kind of that alternative, what would you say? I don't know, being in tune with something that's not, in our...
Beyond the deterministic or reductionist kind of view of things.
100%. I'm a lot more open to when people say, this might sound weird, but I'm like, girl,
Let's go.
Let me tell you about my birds.
Totally. Yeah. There's this one kind of piece of spiritual literature that I really love that talks about giving people basically unexplainable events to evoke their sense of seeking. And it's very much in the idea that like that nobody can really impart truth on you, but what the universe can do is kind of inspire you into your own curiosity and into your own seeking. And that one way that can happen is through something that like is just so out of the realm of possibility or coincidence that you're just like, wow, this is some kind of synchronicity that I need to pay attention to. And I wonder for you if there was kind of this twofold piece. Like one was that it was this sign to end the relationship, but it also sounds like it also really just opened your worldview or your kind of curiosity a bit.
100%. I already had a real openness to that, but like experience something so intensely firsthand is like really did it for me.
Yeah.
I mean, you can talk to a skeptic and they would easily, that's coincidence, or like that is, but it's like, sure, it could totally be a coincidence. It could totally be rooted in just scientific reality, but like it just doesn't feel like that. And like it opened me up to being just more aware. I think awareness is like a word that I've kind of been repeating a lot, is like just what you open yourself up to when you're just aware of what's going on, because a lot of people probably have the same stuff, they just miss it because they're not paying attention to it. Which I'm sure I miss 1,000 things all the time, but like I think this is kind of just opened me up to seeing things that I wouldn't have before. But it kind of runs the risk of sometimes trying to find hyper meaning and stuff, which
totally, it's kind of the other end of the spectrum.
Which I tend to do because I kind of romanticize things, and after that experience I'm kind of get a little too attached to feeling like something is meant to be or not meant to be. So it's something like I've talked about in my therapy sessions of like, especially with the ketamine therapy, of like, what does this, I can't believe this, like in my session, like this, what does this mean? And it's like, sometimes that's not, you don't have to figure out a meaning. Like there's a quote in a Miranda July book. She's like, it was very similar. It was like, I was trying to figure out what it meant, but I tend to always try to find meaning in everything when oftentimes there's none, and I think that was like, oh yeah, I probably do that, but I think it's worth at least being open to finding meaning in whatever you're doing, but not going too far into it.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned that, and I think it's an interesting line. And like, when are we projecting meaning that's not there, and when is something really wild happening
right in front of everything?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this is super fascinating. So it seems like, what happened after the breakup, and where were you at, like, mentally? Because it seems like some of what you ended up wanting to work on in ketamine was born out of...
Oh, yeah. So after my long-term 8.5-year relationship, friendship, deep connective person that was, like, my person, like, I did the thing that I won't say you shouldn't, because, like, I did what I did and I processed the way I did, but I didn't process any of it. I basically ended it, immediately distracted myself with a new relationship, a new, like, just zealousness for what I perceived as freedom, which turned out to not be that, because I just didn't do any work. Like I just like conveniently distracted myself from all the processing that that relationship was due for that. Like I needed,
like a grieving.
Yeah, I didn't let myself grieve. I didn't give the relationship like the respect it deserved. I completely was at the end of my rope timeline. I just was so ready to release her and myself, and it felt like I was just I don't know the right word, just completely almost possessed by just starting something new. Like, but I did not take any time to process, to grieve, to reflect, to see where I went wrong. It was just like a complete baton pass. And around June of last year, or this year, sorry, well, I guess it was about a year. It was October of last year. I had a cathartic like cry about it, and oh my God, like I can't. And then I pushed it down. I was like, no, focus on your focus on your life, focus on everything, And then it's just like what ketamine therapy has definitely showed me is that you can squish it down. It's gonna come up. Like it's gonna come up, and like I just completely didn't. Yeah, I didn't honor any of that for a long time. And then when I started my sessions, it was like, guess what? Here you go. Here's all the stuff you were completely ignoring. It's in your face now, so deal with it. And I had an incredible, like, painful, cathartic realization of all the behavior that I, like, I don't know.
Like your piece of it, so
my
to speak.
piece, my like responsibility and my ownership in the how I behaved at the end of it, how I kind of treated a delicate situation with no delicacy, and it's like I didn't have the tools that I do now. I would have not done that in the same way, but it was like very painful to have all the stuff you push down come up. People are like, oh, ketamine therapy, that's so cool, how fun, or something. I'm like, no, it's not fun. It's a therapy. It's not supposed to be fun. It definitely just made me face the stuff I was putting away. And so, and
there can definitely be moments of beauty, joy, etc.
Sure.
during them. But yes, ideally it's utilized. And I actually had a mushroom experience that kind of really showed that to me, where it was very much me kind of doing my own work in it. And there was this message that came through, is like, yeah, this is the potential of this medicine, kind of showing me all the more recreational ways that I had used psychedelics in general. But yeah, it was like, all of that is, it's like, yeah, you can have some interesting experiences. You can laugh a lot with your friends or whatever. Okay, cool. But like, this is like the real potential of it. You can face things that you can't normally get to in any other kind of way, and process them and transmute them and change your life. And
yeah, I think like the way Ben, my boss, who funded this for me before, I also use Thank You Life, as to do some follow-up sessions. But he described it before I started as like, imagine you're a skier and you're going down the ski slope over and over again, to the point like you start having divots from your skis in the slope, and you just continue to like ski the same path that you've already created for yourself because it's safe and easy, and like how to do it, and like you keep skiing and going up and skiing and going up. But then the grooves, and then it's like he's like, ketamine therapy for me like smoothed out the grooves and then like allowed me to like make new ones.
Exactly.
And I was like, what? Like I get it, but like what? And then once I did it, I was like, oh, like I'm thinking in ways I just never had before, and like opened myself up to having empathy that I never had before.
Wow.
Because I can totally see like different perspectives It almost felt like like I know that it's not a mushroom or any, something like that, but I kept thinking mushrooms or networks. Like whenever I was on my journey, like it felt connective to everyone, and like I had no anger towards anyone. I mean, in this moment, I feel feelings of anger for certain things, but like under like that process, I was able to like redirect that into like love and empathy, and I feel a lot better, especially dealing with that long-term relationship. Like I was able to see her as this like person I hadn't let myself see. I had villainized that person, and then it's not like I took a villain role or anything, or a victim role. It was like the therapy helped me see just that we created each other, and like we were like, how could I have frustration or hatred or anger towards a person that like I helped birth? Like we created each other by being together for so long. So how is there any type of animosity there? Because otherwise it's just towards myself, because like that's my stuff,
Because you had as much of a influence into like creating her into what she became.
Yeah, as she helped create me too. But like, yeah, like on the trip, I mean, I guess everyone has a different experience. Mine were very visual, very trippy and visual, and like some of them were very clear cut, almost narrative driven, and some of them were like very different,
abstract.
Yeah,
yeah.
But this particular kind of instance was like we were in a club, and I was a teddy bear, and then I'm like dancing to this club music, and then I look over and I see another teddy bear, and I'm like, and I knew it was her, and then we started dancing together, and then we were like dancing through walking through each other, and there was like this like intense love of like, oh my gosh, like if I hate her, or if I'm angry at her, if I like resent her, I'm just resenting myself, because like we both shaped each other. And now, like, what's the point of carrying those feelings,
So that was like the actual experience that happened that gave you that insight of like, we created each other.
Same. Or we're all, yeah, like everyone, not just me and her, but like networks of people. Like everyone has their own, we're all just like at our core, like precious little souls that the world and like our interpretation of the world gets marred, or like we put up armor. But at the end of the day, like we're all like connected in this like very basic way. And so yeah, it was like that realization. I kind of ended that. There was a lot that happened on that first one. That first one was probably my favorite. Like got most out of the first session I had. Yeah, it was just like, oh, I don't have to hold on to all this stuff. I mean, sure, like there's still feelings, but there's like it's reoriented a little bit, repathed. So
yeah, and I guess what I found with the ketamine is that it can create a little bit of distance, and make the feelings not. I mean, so it's a dissociative anesthetic, right? So it kind of like can numb, and sometimes that can feel really pleasurable. But yeah, I found like I can feel my feelings and turn toward them and see them very clearly, but they're not so blunt. They don't like hurt or sharp. Maybe that's a better word. They're not so sharp.
Yeah.
Which, at least in this context, I think can be helpful, because it can let me look at it all clearly without needing to be like, okay, that was really intense. Like I need to not feel this so much.
Yeah, I feel that. Yeah.
So, what came up during that first session?
Well, I think it was like, yeah, no idea what to expect. And, it took a minute for me to kind of enter into that, first like, oh, here we go. Oh, we're going. Oh. And basically...
Intramuscular?
Yeah.
Shot in the arm?
Like the infusion on my arm. It's an infusion.
Oh, like
yeah.
IV.
IV.
Yeah.
Intravenous. Yeah.
Got it.
And so I immediately was in the water. Like, I really like swimming, and like I like being in water. And so the immediate thing was like I was swimming and I looked and I was a shrimp, like a little, and I realized I was like in prehistoric, primordial kind of waters. And I was like with all these other shrimp, and we're like woo, like dipping and diving into the ocean, and then I get deeper and deeper and deeper into the ocean. And then all of a sudden, it's like black, like dark. And I'm like, this is wild, you know, like, whoa. And then I had a little bit of I could feel myself getting anxious because I'm like, I cannot breathe underwater. I am a person. I can't breathe underwater. I got to get out of here. And then I'm like, I can breathe underwater. This is so cool. Like, I'm on the ocean floor. And then all of a sudden I was in space. And so it flipped. So I was at the top of space, and I was sitting on this, there's a game called Marble Madness from the 80s that was like a video game my brother played. And all of a sudden I'm sitting on these like little weird spatial things like from the game, like looking at stars. And I was just like, whoa, this is really crazy. But then it kind of went from all of a sudden I like looked down and I see like Manhattan, like New York. And then I just like kind of fell gently down into the middle of the city, and this whole city was like the sun was going down, it was orange, and everyone was just like walking past me, you know, like a movie, like where you're still and everyone like walking past, like a 90s rom-com when you're just like, oh
yeah,
that moment, and it's like the city's moving all around me and I'm just thinking. And it was like hyper connection. That's the first moment I was like, oh, I'm super connected to everyone. And then that's when it went to that club scene when I was a teddy bear. I don't like, it just sounds so silly, but it all made a lot of sense to me. There's a big narrative of like, here I am. And
I mean, it sounds like just a lot of almost like spiritual insight into things.
Yeah, it was almost fun. Like, it felt like I was in like a simulator kind of, as my own brain. And then so like after that little teddy bear connective club scene with my ex-partner, and had this feeling of like love and connection, and like, oh my gosh, like I'm not mad anymore, we're like we're the same, you know. And then it went back to the water, and so I was like back into the ocean as a little shrimp, and I'm swimming, and I was just like, wow, I guess this is a good enough time as any to figure out, maybe ask this question. So I look at the shrimp next to me, and I was like, hey, what's the meaning of life? Because I was like, I'm on drugs, I might as well ask the question. And he looks at me and he's like, what? And he's like, the meaning of life is to be in water. And I was like, for real? And he's like, yeah, isn't it great to be in the water? And I said, how do you know what water is? You're a shrimp. And he's like, well, we're swimming, and swimming is great. You love swimming. And I'm like, I do. I was like, so the meaning of life is just to be in water? He's like, it's to be in whatever you're in, man. And he just like swims around. And I was like, whoa. And I woke up and I was like, the meaning of life is to be in water? And I was like, yeah, water's great. And like, sure. And then to be whatever you're in. So like, the meaning of life is to feel sadness, to feel joy, like whatever you're in. And it was like, session 1, damn, I have a new outlook on life, you know?
Wow.
It's easier said than done to be like, yeah, I'm really grateful to be experiencing this profound tiredness. But I do have a new lens a little bit that I remind myself of, like, this is the point of life, is to feel everything. Whatever you're in, like the table, like this is like this room, even though like a lot of my sessions were like, rooms aren't real. Like I kept having this thought, like, rooms are not real. They're constructs. They're not real. Like, this is so silly to be in here. Like, because our brain is expansive, vast, no comprehension. And then we're in like this room. It's like, really? Are we? You know?
Like a box.
Yeah, it's like not real. So that's like, that was another recurring theme. And then, yeah, just wild stuff. My godmother who passed away.
Are you from New York?
No, I'm from, born in Ohio.
Okay.
I moved when I was 8 to Southern California, which was very weird. Orange County, 2000 to 2010. What a time. So strange. And then I went to school in New York.
Okay. Because you have a little bit of that accent that I can hear.
Do I? I've never been told that. I feel like I have more of a Midwest, like accent, like, oops, super.
There was a little bit in there. I could be wrong.
I
too,
wish. I wish I sounded like a New Yorker. But no, yeah, like my godmother, who's I used to spend my summers in France helping her with her business. Like she passed away like 2 years ago. It was the horrifying, like sudden. I miss her all the time, and it's like she just randomly kept popping up. I don't even think about her on a daily, regular basis, but she was like a guide, like throughout. She was like there, and she just kept laughing, and she was like, she kept saying in her accent, she's like, "You can't even conceive of it. You can't conceive of it." And I was like, "Of what?" And she just went like, like it's
all of it, yeah.
like she knew something that I didn't because she's on another side, and I was like, well, that's pretty cool. And she's laughing, so wherever she is seems good.
Couple things about that. It's amazing how much over and over I hear people of past loved ones and pets coming into people's ketamine experiences. It's uncanny how, and the only person I've really lost is my grandmother just a year and a half ago. And same with her. It's like such beautiful moments to like reconnect with her, or just it's like when I'm on a journey, I can think of her and just feel so deeply connected to her.
Right.
And feel like I really just, it's like, wow, I can kind of touch her if she's there. And then, so I'm curious what, in between her passing and before you started the ketamine, how was that? Were you grieving her? Were you also still able to stay connected to her even before the ketamine?
Yeah, grieving, but it's interesting relationship because she lives in France, and so we hadn't seen each other for, I guess we had seen each other, I think, a couple years before. But it was a relationship that it would have been totally normal to not see her for a couple years or 2 years.
Right.
So it's like she's gone, but I forget because it's like not a person that was in my life all the time.
Yeah.
But she was one of the most impactful people in my life. Like she opened, I mean, besides my parents that helped me, but like she opened so many doors to me to like travel and to get experience and to talk about these types of concepts. Like my parents are very open people, but like she just had a understanding of things that were like nice for someone, 18, 19, 20, like kind of forming my own beliefs and coming from a Catholic background and like not sure how I felt, but like had a reverence for like what I felt was a God or like a higher power, and being open just to like talk through stuff with her. And then she had kind of a unique perspective. But yeah, throughout the last 2 years, it was 2 years ago, 2.5, she, I've written poems. I think about her. I think the biggest thing is knowing it feels like my home is gone. I always felt like I could run to her if I needed to, like a refuge. And her house was amazing and just outside of Paris. And it was like, I knew that no matter what, like if something horrible happened, like I could go find solace with her there. And it's just like I felt Paris was a home, and now it's gone. And so it's just like that's been hard. But it didn't enter ketamine therapy at all like with the intention that she would even come up, because it's not been like a deep pain. It has been a deep pain, but not like an ongoing like, whereas my last relationship has been unsettled. I have all this stuff I want to say, and she's obviously alive, and I can't, I have to be respectful and not, cross that boundary, all that kind of stuff. I feel it's a little different.
It's different. Yeah.
It's different. Yeah. Than with this, I feel, but it's been so nice for her to kind of pop up in my journeys and like guide me in a way, Yeah.
Yeah. And so beautiful to hear kind of the role she played in your life prior, and that, which seemed, I don't know, kind of spiritual. And then that she's still pointing out those things in the ketamine journey.
100%. Yeah, she just kept telling me like that it's so expansive, like you can't conceive of what's out there. And then there was she was in a couple. I was very chatty during my sessions on purpose. Like I wanted Marcy, my therapist, to write down everything, because she had said it's kind of like when you have a dream and then you like throughout the day you might remember parts of the dream. She's like, but you're technically aware enough that you can usually speak, so she's like, if you want to dictate like what is happening I will write down everything.
Totally.
And I was like, okay, like the first I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, but then I'm like, oh, this makes sense. I can still stay sedated and like in this world while speaking it, while talking. So having those notes, I have like pages of notes from her, just is awesome because I can go back and like review kind of my sessions.
Does it help you kind of get back there at least a little bit?
100%.
Yeah.
I actually want to do like a children's book with it, like do like I've had this idea because there's so many like things that were like profound feelings and statements I wish I would have known when I was younger, and so much of my visuals were so like animated, like it was so like, I kind of want to do like a book with my friend who's like an illustrator and like just write about, obviously not ketamine for kids, but like, like talk about these journeys I went on using kind of that thread of, I don't know, just like I had this, I want to share it, but it's so kind of crazy. It's hard to share with someone who hasn't done the experience for them to truly get it. But at the same time, like there are plenty of kind of what I would feel profound realizations, that I wish I had at least the seed of an idea of, like the higher self, like I saw my higher self and I was like, wow, I'm so jealous of you. You are so beautiful and confident. And my higher self was like, jealousy does not exist here. And I was like, what? And she's like, that's not a concept here. So, and it was like, oh, okay. Like that makes sense. How are you jealous of yourself? You have the potential to get there, so you can't really be jealous of your own self. It was that kind of stuff, like little tidbit stories that feel like they can be elaborated into a more digestible story,
Totally. Yeah, and I love that idea of like giving a kid just like seeds of some of these things. And I think it's so important for someone who ends up having, whether from psychedelics or meditation, whatever it is, just being out in nature, having a mystical experience, if they have some sort of seeds planted of like a structure to how to think about what happened to them, just even like the idea of a higher self,
right,
can help us give like concepts and words to it can just help us like understand it more and not be like, whoa, that was out there and I have no idea like where to place that in my mind.
Yeah.
But to be like, oh wow, maybe that was an experience with my higher self. Like maybe that's what just happened.
Yeah. Being more in tune and having like a grounding, like,
structure of like
thought,
conceptualization for it.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, it can be really helpful. There's this this concept, they call it spiritual emergence/emergency. And basically somebody having a really mystical or, intense sort of spiritual experience where at a certain point they could really kind of go either way, where they could go more into psychosis perhaps, or it could be this really transformative experience. And they talk about two things that are really important at that moment. I forget what the first one is, but the second one is basically having a framework, or at least having someone who can give you a framework. So I just think that's all that stuff is super interesting.
Super interesting, because it's like unless you understand basic, your brain can't even go there. It's kind of like having I don't know. It's like hearing a language and some words, so you can kind of put together what they're saying versus like completely just shutting it out. I know zero Russian. So if someone's speaking Russian, I just tune it out. If someone's speaking Spanish, I know, 10% of the language. I'm like, oh, I can kind of pick that up. Or at least I can put it into what's happening,
Yeah, totally. So I'm curious to go back to, I think still a lot of what you shared about your experiences in the sessions all still sounded very beautiful. So where was the moment where it was like, oh, I'm like looking at my stuff here?
Honestly, I mean, that first session with like that moment with the teddy bear and club scene, which sounds so silly.
Yeah.
That was like pretty much right off the bat, you know, because my intention the intention that I went into the journey with was empathy for the self, because like my therapist had asked me, you know, you're trying to find empathy for your, you know, you're trying to like channel, but like empathy for other people, or like, you know, let go of resentment, right, for other people. But like, what about, like, do you have love and empathy for yourself? And I was like, I immediately cried, because I was like, I have no concept of what that is. Like, it's not that I hate myself. It's not that I just don't like think of myself as a lovable person that I know how to take care of and love. So it was like, that kind of that opened it up to be, okay, my intention is to find empathy for myself. And it, like, parts of the sessions were like literally looking through windows and looking under rocks for like empathy, like looking for it.
Wow,
like physically.
Interesting.
Yeah, like looking through windows, seeing it, like, oh, is it in there? Like, you know, it was really interesting.
Wow.
Yeah. And yeah, I think just even the concept like of being aware that you can have empathy for yourself or love for yourself. For me, as someone who has a hard time like with that, that was just automatically helpful. But as for
sounds like just a great orientation,
yeah,
for you.
And it kind of brought up all the stuff. I mean, the processing, because it's like probably one of the huge reasons my relationships have failed is because I didn't have that. Like, if you don't, what I'm realizing, took me freaking 10 years, but like, what I'm realizing is if you're not good and you're not loving yourself and you're not able to own your shit, like, you can't do that for other people. It's like the stupid metaphor of putting your mask, in the plane, like putting your mask before your kid. It's like, what? It's like, no, because they're gonna die if you die, you know? So if you're not healed and you're not regulated, you can't regulate other people. It's just creates this horrible cyclical, like, hellscape.
And it reminds me of you talking about codependency. I imagine if I'm not loving myself, codependency might really be the only option if we're going to relate. Right.
Yeah. It's like I'm seeking validation and comfort from other people, but like, yeah, I can't do it myself. But now it's like, oh, a huge ownership part of my relationships now that I'm like realizing is like, you know, I tended to want to villainize them, or like, you know, like, oh, this is you guys. And it's like, wait, I have a huge part in this, because like I didn't have the boundaries set for myself. I didn't have enough self-confidence. I didn't have enough, I just didn't know myself. You can't really love and honor other people if you don't love and honor yourself. But I'm coming from the camp as a type 2 and as like Catholic background of like loving yourself feels like guilt inducing, you know? It's like, how selfish is that? It's like, you know, but there's this book called Awareness by Anthony DeMello. I don't know if you've read it or heard of it. But
heard of it, yeah.
He talks about how altruism is not necessarily good, because your self-sacrificial love is not healthy at all.
Especially if it's breeding resentment.
Exactly. And unless you're a really high version of yourself, self-sacrificial love will breed resentment. So that's where I went wrong, you know, or like had to learn that like resentment is easy for me to build because of my personality type, but it's up to me to not do that. And it just will take me like caring for myself first, and then it will literally open myself up to being the best version of myself for others. It's easy to talk about, it's harder to do, but like I think that the ketamine sessions, looking back, like that's I was trying to process my relationship, but like in that I realized like, yes, I did that a lot more than I ever had. Like it was right in my face. But then
you did what more than you ever had?
Process. Like it was I had pushed everything away. Like I didn't think I had to process it. I was like, I just want to move on with my life. It's like, you can't move on until you actually release the knot, like.
And I imagine that's also where the self-empathy and self-love will kind of be born out of, is actually as if you're actually kind of looking in there.
And that's the hard thing, because it's like when I processed it, and when I could reflect on my behavior, and when I could reflect on how I handled things, I was like, oh no, I'm bad, or like I'm not good. But then it's like, wait, the whole point here is to find like love for yourself. So it's like that line of understanding and taking ownership and knowing that you have the tools now to probably not do that again in that way, or handle myself different. But also, like, in the midst of that, how do I learn to like myself and be okay with that,
And not villainize yourself or hate yourself.
That's what I'm doing right now. Like that's my journey right now. Like, even post sessions, like that's my kind of goal, is to like, how do I get good with myself so I can actually take care of myself? Because, like, honestly, I don't feel great, but ketamine, it really brought up all that stuff so I can actually deal with it. So it's like a 2-part as the hard stuff, and now I am aware and I can process it.
And they especially with this kind of medicine, they often talk about like one difference between, say, even though ketamine is kind of more in the bucket of Western medicine, but often the difference between Western medicine and more like shamanic medicine is, or call it indigenous medicine, often you can get sicker before you get better because it's addressing the roots, where Western medicine is all just focused on, can we just suppress the symptoms. Sure. And so, part of psychedelic therapy is that, it can bring things up. And so things actually might get a little more unstable at first, which is really something that we try to be mindful of with what we're doing at Thank You Life. But that ultimately it's because, like, okay, I'm trying to think of a good analogy. Like, it's like if there was a really dark room where like all the windows have been boarded up and there's just like dust accumulating for years. And first thing you do is kind of let the light in, open the windows, let some air in. But then all that's going to do is like help you see how dirty and dusty that fucking room is.
It's a really good analogy or comparison or whatever. Yeah, that's.
And then you can still like clean the room.
Yep.
But still just letting the air in and letting the light in.
It's the first step. Yeah.
First step does do something, but also kind of helps you see more clearly how fucked up it all is.
Oh yeah. And believe me, I'm like, oh my God, I thought I was fine. Like, what? Yeah, it's a lot of work. It's like one of the hardest things I've ever done, to be honest, is like this process. But so good. It's like a hard workout. Like, it's like you feel sore afterwards, but like you are like literally know that you just did something good for yourself. Yeah. And I think that's why, like, I understand now why they're like at Illumma, they were like, make sure you have a safe, like, I don't know, like, make sure your external life is in as best of a spot as it can be, and make sure you're not, drinking a day before or after. Make sure you're like have a good place to sleep, and make sure you're not planning anything, like, and I'm kind of like, I get it now, because I should have taken that a little bit more. I followed it pretty carefully, but like my home life and my like wasn't as peaceful as I could have created it, or I didn't keep the boundaries that I committed to, like, of like, no, I can't do ABCD, or like, I just had this session, I would like to just go to sleep. Yeah. Instead, I'm like I was more of like a sure, yeah, okay, yeah, it's probably fine, Sure. But I still feel like I got a lot of like seeds of healing, like a lot of like beginnings of healing. Doesn't like, does not. I don't feel like it heals you. It just opens you up to allow yourself to heal. Is how I feel it was. Yeah.
And it's interesting. I think there's a huge spectrum where I think some people find incredible relief from their symptoms. And then, other people don't find as much. Yeah. But ideally, either way, for all the people, it opens up this process where they're able to see what's there, see what they have to work on, and kind of are able to move forward toward that. But also just kind of highlights the importance of the integration work.
100%, which I realized after the fact. Yeah, I had 6 sessions to start, and my first 5 felt like completely positive, joy-filled, connective, happy, like felt like a relationship almost, like very like the start. And then the 6th session was very intense, and it very much like felt dark and scary, and like I was experiencing hell, and like whoa, like, and I ended it, and I was like, oh, that's your 6th session, like, and as someone who can't afford ketamine therapy, it was like, can't just go to another one, like, and so I was like, left the clinic, and then and I financially can't even afford like the therapy I would want, like on my own, like to continue seeing my therapist on her private practice was like not an option for me personally. So like I kind of felt really untethered, and like I kind of got broken up with. That's not what happened, of course, but like I felt like, whoa, where's my closure? This is so cold. Oh my gosh, I don't know how to go from here. I thought this was different. And then they followed up with me a couple weeks later, and how are you doing? And I was like, not good, like really not great. Like I feel stressed because like I feel like I'm not done, and it's not like I'm craving another set. I need to just get more. It just felt unresolved mid-process, and
totally.
So I talked. So they encouraged me to basically like, they're like, oh, we have a program. Just fill out a few forms, and we could possibly, if you're approved, get you in another session or 2. And
which was us.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Life. And so so I did, and it was approved. And I talked to Ben, and I said, look, I did this. Like, I wasn't comfortable asking for any more from you because you've already been so generous. So I did this route, and it was interesting because then y'all were talking, and I was like, hey, by the way, I'm connected to both of you. Like, I've done it, And yeah, so I got 2 more sessions, and I've done 1, and it was interesting. A couple months after, like a month or 2 after the last one, I did that, and I have a hard time remembering actually that session so much, but I do have my notes. But yeah, I feel like I talked to my boss, and I talked to kind of brought up like, look, like this is an incredible opportunity. Thank you. I'm so grateful for it. Like immensely grateful, but I'm not asking for anything else. But like I do feel very like in need of follow-up therapy, because like all of this stuff just came up, and then there's no like,
let's go move through it.
Like the bridge stops, and you're like, wait, I see the land, but there's like,
I'm not there. I'm
not there. I need help, and like I can't afford it.
I'm not one step away.
And it felt hard conversation, because I never wanted him or the organization to feel taken advantage of, and I was like, I really just feel really I kept saying the word untethered, but like I felt completely, so we had a conversation, and he was able to kind of, I'm now seeing Marcy, my therapist, outside of Illumma.
Right. Shout out to Marcy Jacobs,
Marcy is the best.
Amazing ketamine therapist here in Austin.
Yeah, she's awesome. I did not know if I was gonna vibe with her at first, because she's very direct, and I'm a little sensitive. And after we talked to the first session, I was like, oh no, you're what I need. Like she's been really helpful, and I've seen therapists, not ketamine therapists, but for off and on, like random ones covered by my insurance, and I was just like never felt connected. Like it never stayed more than a few sessions, because there's just like, or I would usually put in 5 or 6, But yeah, this is the first time I've actually felt challenged by a therapist. Like, instead of them agreeing with everything I'm saying, it was like, oh, you're actually highlighting stuff that I need to know.
Therapy's great, but therapy with good therapists is great. And I think there's oftentimes that it's not that helpful.
It was like, or it felt almost detrimental, because it just felt like I was going into a session, word vomiting, and then them going, oh, okay.
Yeah.
they almost like acted meek around, like, you know, like it was weird. Like, especially my therapist before Marcy, I probably went 3 months or 4 months, and I was just like, what am I doing here? Like, even though I was covered by my insurance, it's still a copay. I was like, this isn't, I'm not getting anything out of this, you know.
Yeah.
And no shade to her, but it was just more like it wasn't for me. But this feels a lot different. I feel
So is Ben and Bangers, did they end up helping you pay
yeah.
for these
So
sessions
we
with
had a
Marcy?
conversation. It was more Ben and Albert. Albert is our integrator there, so he's kind of like a director of ops, you know. And so Bangers is very interested. Ben and is very interested in like trying to make these types of things more accessible to his team. It's amazing. Like, he really does want to like change the world, and this is like one way he thinks he can do it. And ideally for everyone, but right now at the management level, of like the people that are influencing the rest of the team, he wants to have access to these things to make sure that they're the best versions of themselves they can be. And so we had I think that was the first, I don't know, I could be wrong, but I feel like the first time that he had heard like, oh yeah, if we're going to be opening the door, if we're going to commit to like putting this money into someone and then giving them this incredible journey, incredible experience, but then saying, okay, that's it, and not helping them bridge on the back end. And that could not mean it could mean, equine therapy or like different types of therapy, or even just, something. It's like that awareness came into light, I think, of me being like, dude, I'm sad. This is hard, and I don't have any money to expend on this, So yeah, I was able to talk to him and work out something that was fair, for me to continue this kind of I don't want to say wrap up, because it's going to be ongoing forever, but like at least get me to a place where I felt grounded.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of like in his mind helped him realize that like, yeah, by providing this, there has to be a conversation after of like, how now are you going to integrate this into your life?
Yeah.
Versus feeling completely.
And was that enough support? And did it feel like you got closure, or is there something else that's needed?
I'm still in it. Like I
was just saying that's like part of that, what that conversation can be.
Yeah.
Like, Did you get closure,
Mm-hmm.
or is there something that's like kind of wide open now,
right,
that we should be aware of?
Some people don't need it afterwards. Some people are fine, and some people can do that work on their own or through their own kind of thing. I didn't feel like I could successfully yet. So, but no, I'm really grateful for it. Like, yeah, people are like, what? Your boss paid for your ketamine? And then this organization did what? Like, it's so funny, especially at a place like Bangers. People think Bangers on Rainy Street. They're like, I'm sorry, tell me again, your boss is doing what? Like he's interested in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like, what are you talking about? And it's awesome because I'm his assistant, and like I'm, like I work with him, closely, and I, am involved in the org, and just like I don't know. It's like I do our culture interviews too, like for front of house, and I kind of do the first interview, which is more of an information session. I'm like, you have these people coming in for server host positions, and I'm like, let me tell you about our core values, and let me tell you about bringing your whole self, and we're a growth organization, kind of talking about all this like stuff. They're like, yeah, but what does the tip pool look like? It's like, oh yeah, so also the ticky-tacky stuff. But Bangers is such a place that is like trying to be more than just a restaurant, a bar, like trying to really focus on people. So like when I'm trying to help hire team members, it's like, how do you respond to this stuff? Because it is going to be talked about, not like ketamine therapy for everyone, but like the idea of feedback and, personal growth, and are you interested in learning this, stuff like that, which doesn't come up a lot in that industry.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Like most people are like, oh, this is awesome. I'm like, yeah, sure, it's awesome. But are you, like, how do you feel about it? Like, we want to make sure we're a good fit for you, not just you for us. I don't know. It's great. I love being a part of this type of organization. I'm grateful to have kind of reap some of the benefits that was presented to me. I didn't have to do it. It's not like pressured. It wasn't like you got to do this to be in the club. It was like, I think you would benefit from this. Here it is if you want it, you know?
So you have one more left.
Yeah.
With the Thank You Life piece.
Mm-hmm.
I guess, did you guys just decide to do them like a month apart, or just since you only had 2, you'll do one and then feel into when it makes sense to do the second one?
Fairly soon after I was approved, which I think my last one was August 8th. And then I've been in it wasn't August. That was my 6th session, I think. And then I did it maybe late August or early September. My first Thank You Life session.
Maintenance, yeah.
And I have been such in flux with kind of a breakup / moving / trying to do my job well, you know, like, you know, trying to keep everything here, like survival versus thrive, you know?
Yeah.
And so I met with Marcy last week. And it was that conversation. I would wait until you're settled. Like,
totally.
I would wait. So I think I'm going to do it probably early December, late November, you know, just to allow myself to calm, regulate before prepare, try to get healthy. Like, I've gained weight. I want to like get back into fitness and, you know, just be in a better mental space before taking on that, you know, because I want to get as much as I can out of that session. So
totally.
Yeah.
Totally. I think just one last question. Will you speak, and you already spoke a little bit to it, but I guess will you just speak a bit more to what it means for you to have received both from us and from Ben?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fairly inaccessible treatment for most people. And like receiving that grant or like that gift is like, it's life-changing, I think. And especially like after the fact, when thinking everything was done, you know, like, and then being like, well, there's this organization that can literally bridge that gap for you, you know, if you need more sessions. I was like, really? And then it was a really easy process to like apply for it. And yeah, I mean, it's meant a ton to me. Like, one of the best gifts I've had, because it's something I was not able to do on my own by any means. Like, it's completely out of my financial sphere for most people. Like, I make a salary, but like there is no room for that kind of payment cost. So it's like, this makes it accessible to people like me or anyone that like does not come from a place where that is easy to just do. You know, some people do put their money towards that, but even if I wanted to, it wouldn't be an option. And so, yeah, I'm really grateful for it. Like, I'm really, it's really changed my mindset a lot, or at least it's like helped me face the things I didn't want to face, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like a painful gift, but it was a necessary gift. It's like someone getting you like I don't know, socks for Christmas when you don't have any. It's like, oh yeah, I need these. These are fantastic because I didn't have any, but it's not fun, but like, it's good. I needed it. Yeah. I mean, part of it was fun. Man, some of those trips, man, I love it. I can't wait to review my notes. I should have looked at my notes again before coming, but there's so much wacky stuff. Like, it's fun. It was kind of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a good idea to encourage other people to, like review their sessions any way they can. But yeah, thank you so much, Allie, for taking time.
Yeah, it's fun to talk about it.
Yeah, it's really fulfilling for me to get to hear about the experiences of people who actually got to receive from Thank You Life.
I was like, oh, this is great. It's great. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Thank You Life podcast. If you would like to get involved with our mission and help more people in need access ketamine-assisted psychotherapy, please consider becoming a monthly supporter. Donations are the sole means through which we provide financial assistance to our beneficiaries, and we currently have close to 1,000 people in need on our waitlist. This work could not happen without our generous supporters, so if you've been touched by hearing these stories of healing and want to make an impact, please consider visiting our website, thankyoulife.org, and becoming a monthly supporter.